Zara's 3 hearts hammered against her ribcage as the transport ship's engines roared to life. Through the small porthole, she watched her homeworld of Calyx Prime shrink into a distant blue dot. The other passengers on the cramped vessel gave her disgusted looks, their scaled faces twisted with contempt. She pulled her worn cloak tighter around her malformed wings, trying to make herself invisible. The Calyxian Council had been clear in their judgment. Born with only 2 wings instead of the traditional 4, and cursed with the ability to see beyond the visible spectrum, Zara was deemed defective. Her unusual silver eyes, which could perceive energy patterns invisible to normal Calyxians, were considered an abomination. For 23 cycles she had endured the whispers, the pointing, the cruel laughter of her own people. Freak, someone muttered from across the aisle. Zara didn't need to look to know who it was. Corvex, a merchant who had made her life miserable since childhood, was traveling to the same destination. Even the humans won't want something like you. The transport was heading to Nexus Station, a massive trade hub where dozens of species mingled. It was her only chance to find work, to build a life away from the constant rejection of her own kind. Her savings were nearly gone, spent on this one-way ticket to an uncertain future. As the ship entered hyperspace, Zara closed her eyes and tried to ignore the hostile stares. She had heard stories about humans, the newest species to join the galactic community. They were supposedly aggressive and unpredictable, quick to violence and slow to trust. Most species found them intimidating with their forward-facing predator eyes and their strange habit of showing their teeth when happy. The journey to Nexus Station took 3 standard days. During that time, Zara ate sparingly from her dwindling food supplies and spoke to no one. The other passengers made sure she knew she wasn't welcome, clustering together and falling silent whenever she approached. By the second day, even the ship's crew had joined in the ostracism, serving her last and with obvious reluctance. When they finally docked at Nexus Station, Zara was among the last to disembark. She carried her few possessions in a battered satchel, everything she owned in the galaxy. The station's main concourse was overwhelming, filled with beings from dozens of worlds. Towering Ithric traders argued with diminutive pixie merchants while crystalline shards chimed musical negotiations with gaseous nebulans. But it was the humans that caught her attention. They moved through the crowd with an easy confidence, their bipedal forms smaller than many species but somehow commanding respect. Their skin came in fascinating varieties of brown and pink and tan, and their hair ranged from darkest black to palest gold. Most intriguingly to Zara's enhanced vision, they radiated an energy signature unlike any she had ever seen. Where other species showed predictable patterns of bioelectric activity, humans blazed with chaotic, swirling energies that shifted and danced with their emotions. Zara found a quiet corner and opened her tablet, searching for employment opportunities. Her qualifications were few, her references non-existent. Most postings specifically excluded Calyxians, or worse, included clauses about normal physiological requirements that she couldn't meet. As the hours passed and her credit balance dwindled, desperation began to creep in. That's when she noticed the posting that would change everything. A small human-owned cargo company was looking for a detail-oriented individual with exceptional observational skills for quality control position. The pay was modest, but it didn't list any species restrictions. With trembling claws, Zara submitted her application. The response came within an hour. An interview was scheduled for the next morning at Docking Bay 94. Zara spent what little money she had left on a cheap room in the station's lower levels, surrounded by the hum of recycling systems and the distant rumble of cargo haulers. She practiced what she would say, how she would explain her abilities without seeming like the freak her own people believed her to be. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted by nightmares of more rejection, more doors closing in her face. In her dreams, she heard Corvex's laughter echoing through empty corridors while faceless beings pointed at her deformed wings and strange eyes. She woke several times, her hearts racing, wondering if she had made a terrible mistake in coming so far from home. The morning brought fresh anxiety as Zara made her way through the station's labyrinthine corridors. To Docking Bay 94, her enhanced vision picked up the stress patterns of other job seekers, their bioelectric fields pulsing with nervous energy. She tried to smooth her rumpled clothing and hoped the humans wouldn't notice how her hands shook. The docking bay housed a medium-sized freight vessel called the Yakor, Lucky Star, its hull showing the wear of countless journeys but obviously well-maintained. Near the ship's ramp stood a human male, checking items off a tablet. He was of average height for his species, with brown skin and close-cropped black hair. When he looked up at her approach, Zara braced herself for the familiar look of disgust or fear. Instead, the human smiled, an expression that revealed his white teeth in what she had learned was a sign of friendliness among his kind. "You must be Zara," he said, his voice warm and welcoming. "I'm Captain Marcus Chen. Thanks for coming down so quickly." Zara stared at him in shock. In her entire life, no one had ever greeted her with such casual warmth. She struggled to find her voice, her 3 hearts beating so fast she thought they might burst. "Captain Chen?" Zara managed to stammer, her voice barely above a whisper. She had expected him to recoil at the sight of her malformed wings or comment on her unusual appearance. Instead, he simply gestured toward his ship with the same easy manner he might use with any crew member. "Come aboard. Let's talk somewhere more comfortable," Marcus said, leading her up the ramp. The Lucky Star's interior was surprisingly spacious, with clean corridors and the warm glow of well-maintained lighting. Zara's enhanced vision immediately picked up something remarkable about the human's bioelectric field. Where most beings showed spikes of disgust or fear when looking at her, Marcus radiated only mild curiosity and what she could only interpret as genuine interest. They settled in a small conference room adjacent to the cargo bay. Marcus poured himself a cup of coffee from a thermal carafe and offered Zara water, which she accepted gratefully. Her throat had gone dry from nervousness, and the simple kindness of the gesture nearly brought tears to her silver eyes. "So," Marcus began, consulting his tablet, "your application mentioned exceptional observational skills. Can you tell me more about that?" Zara hesitated. This was always the moment when everything went wrong, when she had to explain the very thing that made her people consider her an abomination. "I have enhanced visual perception," she said carefully. "I can see energy patterns, electromagnetic signatures, things that aren't visible in normal spectrum light." She waited for the inevitable questions about her deformity, the uncomfortable shifting, the polite but firm rejection. Instead, Marcus leaned forward with obvious interest. "That's fascinating," he said, and his energy signature blazed brighter with what Zara realized was excitement. "We transport a lot of sensitive equipment, some of it very expensive. Having someone who could spot energy leaks or detect malfunctioning components before they become problems would be incredibly valuable." Zara blinked in surprise. No one had ever called her abilities valuable before. "You're not bothered by my appearance?" she asked, unable to keep the question inside. Marcus looked genuinely puzzled. "Should I be? You seem perfectly healthy to me. Your wings are different from the Calixians I've met before, but so what? Diversity is what makes the galaxy interesting." He took a sip of his coffee and continued. "Honestly, most humans think wings are pretty amazing. We've dreamed of flying since we were stuck on our homeworld." The casual acceptance in his voice made Zara's heart skip. She had never experienced anything like it. Throughout her life, her differences had been treated as flaws to be hidden or cured. This human spoke of them as if they were simply interesting variations, no more significant than the color of his hair. "Would you like to see what I mean about the observational skills?" Zara asked, feeling a spark of confidence for the first time in years. "Absolutely," Marcus replied. Zara closed her normal eyes and let her enhanced vision take over. The room transformed into a landscape of swirling energies. Marcus's bioelectric field was a warm amber glow shot through with blues and greens, far more complex and beautiful than any she had ever seen. But more importantly, she could see the ship's systems humming around them. "Your primary power coupling has a small fluctuation," she said, pointing to what appeared to be an empty bulkhead. "There's energy bleeding off about 2 meters behind that wall. It's not dangerous yet, but it will become a problem in the next few days if not addressed." Marcus's eyebrows rose. He pulled up a schematic on his tablet and checked the location she had indicated. "That's exactly where we've been having intermittent power drops," he said, his voice filled with amazement. "Our engineer has been trying to track down that problem for weeks. I can also see stress patterns in materials," Zara continued, growing more confident. "Metal fatigue, composite degradation, things like that, and biological stress signatures in living beings." "Could you detect if someone was lying?" Marcus asked. "Not lying exactly, but I can see emotional states. Stress, fear, anger, joy. They all have different energy signatures." Marcus sat back in his chair, clearly impressed. "Zara, I think you might be exactly what we need." Our cargo runs often involve high-value shipments, and we've had problems with theft and sabotage. Having someone who could spot problems before they happen, or detect when someone might be planning trouble, would be invaluable. Zara felt something she had never experienced before, the sensation of being wanted, of having her unique abilities appreciated rather than feared. "You really want to hire me?" she asked, hardly daring to believe it. "If you're interested in the position, yes," Marcus said. "The pay is decent, you'd have your own cabin, and we travel to some pretty interesting places. The crew is small but friendly, and we take care of our own." The phrase "take care of our own" resonated deeply with Zara. She had never been anyone's own before, never belonged anywhere or to anyone. "I accept," she said quickly, before he could change his mind. Marcus smiled again, that strange human expression that somehow conveyed warmth and acceptance without words. "Welcome aboard the Lucky Star, Zara. Let me introduce you to the rest of the crew." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Zara marveled at how different this felt from every other interaction she had ever had. There was no judgment in Marcus's manner, no barely concealed disgust or patronizing tolerance. He treated her like a normal being with valuable skills, and for the first time in her life she began to believe that maybe she wasn't the freak her people had always told her she was. The Lucky Star's crew quarters were located on the ship's middle deck, and Marcus led Zara through a corridor lined with personal doors. The soft hum of the ship's life support systems created a comforting background noise, and Zara noticed how clean and well-maintained everything was. This wasn't some desperate operation run by criminals or outcasts. This was a legitimate business, and they wanted her to be part of it. "First, let's meet Elena," Marcus said, stopping at the engineering section. Through an open doorway, Zara could see a human female working on an exposed panel, her dark hair tied back in a practical ponytail. Tools were scattered around her in organized chaos, and she was humming softly to herself as she worked. "Elena, we've got a new crew member," Marcus called out. The engineer looked up, and Zara braced herself for the familiar reaction. Elena was younger than Marcus, with olive skin and bright green eyes that seemed to sparkle with curiosity. When she saw Zara, those eyes widened slightly, but not with disgust or fear. "Wow, those are some impressive wings," Elena said, wiping grease from her hands with a rag. "I've never seen anything like them. Are they functional?" Zara blinked in surprise. "They allow limited gliding, but they're not strong enough for true flight. My people consider them defective." "Defective?" Elena laughed, a warm sound that filled the small space. "They're beautiful. The bone structure alone must be incredibly complex. I'd love to understand the aerodynamics sometime, if you don't mind me asking about it." The casual scientific curiosity in Elena's voice was completely different from the morbid fascination or disgusted staring Zara was used to. This human seemed genuinely interested in understanding how things worked, including Zara herself, without making her feel like a specimen to be studied. "She's our new quality control specialist," Marcus explained. "Zara can see energy patterns and stress signatures that are invisible to the rest of us. She already spotted that power coupling problem you've been hunting." Elena's eyes lit up with professional interest. "Really? That's fantastic. I've been going crazy trying to track down those power fluctuations. Could you show me exactly where you detected the problem?" For the next few minutes, Zara found herself in the novel position of being consulted as an expert. Elena listened intently as she described what she could see in the ship's power grid, taking notes and asking intelligent questions. There was no condescension in her manner, no suggestion that Zara's abilities were unnatural or wrong. "This is going to make maintenance so much easier," Elena said with obvious excitement. "We could prevent problems before they happen instead of always playing catch-up with repairs." Their next stop was the ship's small medical bay, where they found Dr. James Park, the Lucky Star's medic and science officer. He was a compact human with graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. When Marcus introduced Zara, Dr. Park simply nodded politely and asked if she had any medical conditions or dietary restrictions he should know about. "I'll need to set up a basic medical file," he explained matter-of-factly. "Different species have different physiological needs, and I want to make sure I can provide proper care if needed." The casual assumption that he would provide care, that she was worth protecting and healing, left Zara speechless for a moment. On Helix Prime, medical treatment for defectives was minimal at best. Here, this human doctor was already planning to look after her health as if she were any other crew member. "I don't require anything special," Zara managed to say. "Standard Calixian physiology, mostly." "Good to know," Dr. Park replied, making notes. "And please call me James. We're not big on formality here." The informality was another shock. On her homeworld, her deformed status meant she was required to use honorifics when addressing normal Calixians. These humans simply introduced themselves by their given names and expected her to do the same. Marcus led her to the ship's small common area, where the final crew member was waiting. Tom Bradley was the ship's pilot and navigator, a tall human with red hair and an easy grin that reminded Zara of Marcus's welcoming smile. He was playing some sort of card game on a tablet when they entered, but immediately put it aside to focus on the introductions. "New crew member?" Tom asked, standing up to greet them. When he saw Zara, his eyebrows rose appreciatively. "Those wings are incredible. Do you have hollow bones like Earth birds, or is the structure completely different?" "I'm not sure," Zara admitted. "I've never had them properly examined." "James could probably tell you," Tom suggested. "He's fascinated by comparative anatomy. Fair warning, though. He might talk your ear off about evolutionary adaptations if you let him." The easy banter between the crew members was unlike anything Zara had experienced. There was genuine affection in their interactions, a sense of family that transcended species boundaries. They seemed to accept her presence without question, as if having a malformed Calixian join their crew was the most natural thing in the galaxy. "So what's your story?" Tom asked, settling back into his chair. "What brings you all the way out to Nexus Station?" The question was casual, but Zara felt her three hearts skip. How could she explain her exile? Her status as a defective, the lifetime of rejection that had driven her so far from home. But something in Tom's manner, the same open acceptance she had seen in all the humans, encouraged her to be honest. "My people don't accept differences well," she said carefully. "I was born with these wings instead of the normal four, and I can see things others can't. They consider me defective." Tom's expression darkened, but not with disgust. Instead, Zara saw anger on her behalf, indignation that anyone would treat her poorly for such arbitrary reasons. "Their loss," he said firmly. "And our gain?" Marcus nodded in agreement. "We've all got our stories," he said. Elena was told she was too unconventional for the major shipping lines. James lost his position at a research hospital for refusing to abandon patients during a crisis. Tom was blacklisted for standing up to a corrupt port authority. Humans have a saying, "One person's trash is another person's treasure." The words hit Zara like a physical blow, but in the best possible way. These humans, these successful, confident beings, were also outcasts in their own ways. Yet they had found each other and built something together, creating a place where being different was not just accepted, but valued. For the first time since leaving Helix Prime, Zara felt something she had almost forgotten existed: hope. Zara's cabin was small but comfortable, with a proper sleeping alcove, a work desk, and even a small porthole that looked out into space. As she unpacked her few belongings, she kept expecting someone to tell her there had been a mistake, that she didn't really belong here. But no one came to take it away from her. The Lucky Star departed Nexus Station the next morning, bound for the mining colonies in the Vega system. It was Zara's first time working as part of a crew, and she threw herself into the job with desperate enthusiasm. Every task Marcus gave her, she completed with meticulous care, terrified that a single mistake might cost her this miraculous second chance. Her enhanced vision proved invaluable almost immediately. During the loading process, she spotted a crate whose contents were generating an unusual electromagnetic signature. When Elena investigated, they discovered the mining equipment inside had been damaged during transport, creating a potential fire hazard. The discovery saved the client thousands of credits and prevented what could have been a dangerous accident in space. "I don't know how we managed without you," Elena said as they secured the repaired equipment. "You're like having an X-ray scanner built right into the crew." The praise made Zara's hearts flutter with pride. On Helix Prime, her abilities had been hidden shamefully, discussed only in whispers and medical consultations aimed at finding a cure. Here they were treated as valuable tools that made everyone's job easier and safer. As the days passed, Zara began to relax into the rhythm of ship life. The humans had a dozen strange customs that fascinated her. They gathered for meals together whenever possible, sharing food and conversation in a way that seemed to strengthen their bonds as a crew. They celebrated small victories with something called high fives, where they would slap their palms together in a gesture of mutual congratulation. Most remarkably, they seemed to genuinely enjoy each other's company. Zara would often find Tom and Elena engaged in friendly arguments about technical specifications, or discover James and Marcus playing chess in the common room while debating philosophy. The easy camaraderie was something she had never witnessed among her own people, where social interactions were rigidly formal and hierarchical. 3 weeks into the voyage, disaster nearly struck. The Lucky Star was transporting a shipment of rare quantum crystals when pirates attempted to board them near the asteroid belt. Zara was on the bridge when the attack began, her enhanced vision tracking the energy signatures of the approaching ships. 3 vessels approaching from the shadow of that asteroid, she reported, her voice steady despite her racing hearts. Their weapons are charging, but they're trying to mask their signatures. Tom's hands flew over the navigation controls while Marcus activated the ship's defensive systems. How long before they're in firing range? Marcus asked. Zara studied the energy patterns of the approaching ships, calculating their acceleration and trajectory. 4 minutes, maybe less. But Captain, there's something else. One of their ships has an unstable power core. If they push their engines too hard, it could explode. Are you sure? Marcus demanded. Absolutely. The containment field is fluctuating. It's dangerous for them to maintain high acceleration. Marcus made a split-second decision that would have been impossible without Zara's unique abilities. Instead of running or preparing for a fight, he opened a communication channel to the pirates. Attention pirate vessels, he broadcast. Your lead ship has a critical power core failure. If you don't reduce speed immediately, you're going to lose containment and destroy yourselves. There was a moment of silence, then angry responses from the pirates demanding he surrender his cargo. But Zara could see through her enhanced vision that the lead ship was indeed reducing speed, their pilots apparently detecting the same instability she had warned them about. The delay gave Tom enough time to plot a jump to hyperspace, and the Lucky Star escaped without firing a shot. As they dropped back into normal space hours later, the crew gathered in the common room to decompress from the close call. How did you know about their power core? James asked Zara, his scientific curiosity overriding the adrenaline of their escape. I could see the energy patterns, Zara explained. The containment field was pulsing wrong like a heartbeat with an irregular rhythm. It would have failed if they had kept pushing their engines. You probably saved their lives, Elena said with admiration. Even pirates don't deserve to die from a reactor explosion. Marcus could have just let them blow themselves up, Tom added. Instead, he warned them. That's the human way, I guess. Even when someone's trying to rob you, you don't want to see them die unnecessarily. The casual heroism of Marcus's decision struck Zara powerfully. Among her own people, enemies were to be destroyed without mercy or warning. The idea of saving the lives of those who would harm you was completely foreign to Calixian thinking. Yet these humans had risked their own safety to prevent unnecessary death, even among their attackers. Why? Zara asked, genuinely confused. They would have taken your cargo and possibly killed you. Why save them? Marcus considered the question seriously. Because someone being wrong doesn't make them worthless, he said finally. Those pirates probably have families, people who care about them. Maybe they're stealing because they're desperate, or maybe they're just making bad choices. Either way, death shouldn't be the penalty for stupidity or desperation. Besides, Elena added with a grin, letting them blow themselves up would have made us look like the bad guys. This way, maybe they'll think twice before attacking another merchant vessel. Sometimes mercy is more effective than violence. The philosophy was revolutionary to Zara. On Calyx Prime, mercy was seen as weakness, and showing compassion to defectives like herself was considered a character flaw. These humans seemed to operate from completely different principles, valuing life and dignity even in their enemies. That night, as Zara lay in her cabin looking out at the stars, she realized something profound had happened to her. For the first time in her life, she felt valued, not despite her differences, but because of them. The humans didn't just tolerate her unusual abilities. They celebrated them, relied on them, and made her feel like an essential part of their family. The word family stuck in her mind. That's what this was, she realized. Not just a crew or a business partnership. but a chosen family that had welcomed her without question or judgment. After a lifetime of rejection and exile, she had finally found a place where she belonged. 6 months after joining the Lucky Star, Zara had become an integral part of the crew. Her reputation for spotting problems before they became disasters had spread through the merchant community, and Captain Chen was getting premium contracts specifically because of her abilities. She had saved them from 3 more potential accidents, detected 2 attempts at cargo theft, and even helped James diagnose a rare medical condition in a passenger by spotting the unusual energy patterns in their nervous system. But it was the small, everyday kindnesses that had truly transformed her life. Elena had taught her to play human card games during their off-duty hours. James had helped her research her own anatomy, discovering that her bone structure was actually an evolutionary advantage that her people had never recognized. Tom had shown her how to navigate by the stars, sharing the ancient human tradition of celestial wayfinding. Most importantly, Marcus had encouraged her to embrace her unique perspective rather than hide it. Under his guidance, she had learned to trust her instincts and speak up when her enhanced vision detected something others missed. The shy, frightened Calixian who had boarded the ship was gradually being replaced by someone confident and valued. The test of how far she had come arrived when the Lucky Star docked at Calix Station, a trading post in neutral space where her own people came to conduct business with other species. Zara hadn't seen another Calixian since leaving her homeworld, and the sight of their familiar 4-winged forms brought back a flood of painful memories. "You don't have to come with us to the station if you don't want to," Marcus said gently as they prepared to dock. "We can handle the cargo transfer ourselves." But Zara surprised herself by shaking her head. "No, I want to go. I'm part of this crew, and this is my job." The confidence in her own voice amazed her. 6 months ago, she would have hidden in her cabin rather than face the judgment of her own people. Now, surrounded by humans who valued her for who she was, she felt strong enough to face anything. The reaction when she walked into Calix Station was exactly what she had expected. Calixians stopped and stared, their 4 wings rustling with agitation as they pointed at her deformed appendages. She heard the familiar whispers of defective and abomination following in her wake. But this time, she wasn't alone. Elena walked beside her, chatting casually about the station's architecture as if nothing unusual was happening. Tom was on her other side, making jokes about the local customs that had Zara laughing despite the hostile stares. Marcus and James flanked the group, their presence somehow making the hostile whispers seem less important. "Ignore them," Elena said quietly when a group of young Calixians began following them and making rude comments. "They're just jealous because you're doing something interesting with your life while they're stuck in their narrow little world." The insight was revelatory. For the first time, Zara looked at her own people through the eyes of her human friends and saw them differently. Their rigid conformity, their cruel treatment of anyone different, their inability to see value in diversity suddenly seemed like limitations rather than virtues. She was the one who had escaped, who had found a place where her unique gifts were appreciated. The moment of truth came when they encountered Corvex, the merchant who had tormented her on the transport ship. He was haggling with a human trader over the price of rare metals, his voice loud and aggressive in the way Calixians used to intimidate other species. Well, Corvex said when he spotted Zara. "The defective has returned. I'm surprised anyone would hire such a broken creature." Before Zara could respond, Marcus stepped forward. His voice was calm but carried an edge that made several nearby aliens take notice. "Zara is a valued member of my crew," he said. "Her abilities have saved us millions of credits and probably some lives too. I'd say that makes her pretty far from broken." Corvex's wings fluttered nervously. Humans had a reputation as dangerous when provoked, and Marcus's protective stance was unmistakable. "She's still a defective," Corvex insisted, but his voice had lost much of its arrogance. "By whose standards?" Elena asked, stepping up to join Marcus. "She can see things the rest of us can't, solve problems we'd never even notice. Where I come from, we call that being gifted, not defective." Tom and James moved to flank their shipmates, presenting a united front that made Corvex back down visibly. The merchant muttered something about humans not understanding proper genetics and hurried away, but not before Zara caught the fear in his energy signature. He was afraid of her human friends, afraid of their willingness to stand up for her. "Thank you," Zara said once Corvex was gone, her voice thick with emotion. Nothing to thank us for, Marcus replied. We look after our own, remember? The phrase that had meant so much to her when she first heard it now carried even deeper significance. She wasn't just part of their crew. She was family. They would defend her against anyone, even her own people. As they completed their business on the station, Zara noticed something that surprised her. Several younger Calixians were watching her with expressions she had never seen before. Envy. They saw her walking confidently with her human friends, heard the respect in their voices when they spoke to her, witnessed the casual acceptance that surrounded her like armor. One young Calixian with slightly asymmetrical wings approached her cautiously, while the others were loading cargo. Is it true? She asked in a whisper. Do the humans really not care about being different? Zara looked at this girl who reminded her so much of her younger self, and felt her heart break for all the others like them. They don't just not care, she said gently. They celebrate it. They think differences make us stronger, more interesting, more valuable. The girl's eyes widened with hope and longing. Do you think they would hire someone like me? If you have skills they need and you're willing to work hard, they'll judge you on your merits, Zara assured her. Not on how many wings you have or what color your eyes are. As they departed Keelix Station, Zara stood at the observation deck watching her people's space shrink behind them. But for the first time she felt no sadness at leaving. She was going home now, back to the lucky star and the family that had chosen her not despite her differences but because of them. Regrets? Marcus asked, joining her at the window. None, Zara replied and meant it completely. I'm exactly where I belong. 2 years had passed since Zara first stepped aboard the Lucky Star, and the ship had become more than just her workplace. It was her home in the truest sense. The crew had grown closer over countless shared adventures, and Zara had blossomed from a frightened exile into a confident professional whose skills were sought after across the galaxy. The transformation was evident in how she carried herself now. Her posture was straight and proud, her voice steady when she spoke, and her unusual silver eyes met others' gazes without shame. The human concept of self-worth had taken root in her heart, nurtured by daily proof that she was valued and respected. Their current mission was one of the most important they had ever undertaken. The Lucky Star had been contracted to transport critical medical supplies to a plague-stricken world in the Outer Rim. The cargo bay was filled with vaccines, medical equipment, and emergency rations, supplies that would save thousands of lives if delivered on time. The urgency of their mission was complicated by reports of increased pirate activity in the shipping lanes. Several medical transports had been attacked, their cargo stolen and sold on the black market to the highest bidder. The authorities were overwhelmed, unable to provide escorts for every relief mission. We could take the long route through the inner systems, Tom suggested during a planning meeting. It would add 2 weeks to the journey, but it's much safer. 2 weeks those people don't have, Dr. James replied grimly. He had been in contact with the medical teams on the plague world, and the reports were devastating. They're losing hundreds of lives every day. The faster route through the Nebula Passage is our only option. The Nebula Passage was notoriously dangerous, a shortcut through a dense stellar formation that interfered with most ship sensors and provided perfect cover for pirates. Many vessels avoided it entirely, considering the risk too great. But Zara's enhanced vision wasn't affected by the electromagnetic interference that blinded conventional sensors. I can guide us through, she said with quiet confidence. The nebula gases show distinct energy patterns that I can read. We'll be able to detect ships long before they can see us. Marcus studied the star charts, weighing the risks. The passage would cut 8 days off their journey, but if they encountered pirates in the nebula, they would be fighting blind, except for Zara's unique abilities. Are you sure you can handle it? He asked. We'd be completely dependent on your vision. I'm sure, Zara replied without hesitation. A year ago, she would have been terrified to take on such responsibility. Now backed by the unwavering faith of her human family, she felt capable of anything. The entry into the Nebula Passage was like diving into a cosmic storm. Brilliant clouds of ionized gas swirled around the Lucky Star, creating a light show that was beautiful and disorienting in equal measure. The ship's conventional sensors immediately began reporting errors and false readings as the electromagnetic chaos overwhelmed their systems. But to Zara's enhanced vision, the nebula was a roadmap written in energy and light. She could see the clear paths between the densest gas clouds, the stable corridors where the ship could travel safely. More importantly, she could detect the subtle disturbances that indicated the presence of other vessels hiding in the cosmic mist. 2 ships, bearing 187 Mark 6, she reported from her position at the sensor station Marcus had installed specially for her. They're holding position near that cluster of asteroids, trying to stay hidden. Tom adjusted their course to give the potential threats a wide berth. The Lucky Star slipped through the nebula like a ghost, guided by Zara's unprecedented ability to see through the interference that blinded everyone else. For 6 hours, they navigated the treacherous passage without incident. Zara detected 3 more groups of ships lying in ambush, but each time she was able to guide them around the danger. The crew worked in focused silence, trusting completely in her guidance as she called out course corrections and hazard warnings. Then everything went wrong at once. A massive solar flare from the nebula's central star sent a wave of electromagnetic energy cascading through the passage. Even Zara's enhanced vision was momentarily overwhelmed by the brilliant surge of radiation. In that brief moment of blindness, they flew directly into a pirate ambush, 4 ships decloaking directly ahead, Elena shouted from the engineering station. They were hiding in the flare's shadow. The pirates had been clever, using the natural radiation of the stellar flare to mask their presence from even Zara's abilities. Now they emerged from concealment with weapons charged and boarding tubes extended, clearly intending to take the Lucky Star intact. "Surrender your cargo and you will not be harmed," came the transmission from the lead pirate vessel. "Resist and we will take what we want from your wreckage." Marcus's face was grim as he considered their options. The Lucky Star was fast and maneuverable, but it was no match for 4 pirate ships in a straight fight. Running was equally impossible. The pirates had positioned themselves to block all the escape routes through the nebula. "Captain," Zara said quietly, her enhanced vision recovering from the flare. "I can see their ship configurations. 3 of them have overcharged weapons that are draining their power cores. If they fire at maximum capacity, they'll burn out their own systems." "How long can they maintain that charge?" Marcus asked. "Not long. Maybe 2 minutes before they have to power down or risk damaging their ships." It was the kind of tactical information that could only come from Zara's unique abilities, and Marcus seized on it immediately. "Open a channel," he ordered Tom. "Pirate vessels, this is Captain Chen of the Lucky Star," Marcus broadcast. "We're carrying medical supplies to a plague world. These supplies will save thousands of lives. If you take them, those people will die." "Not our problem," came the harsh reply. "Cargo is cargo." But Zara could see something the pirates couldn't, the energy signatures of their crews. Several of the ships were showing signs of stress and uncertainty. These weren't heartless killers. They were desperate people who probably had families of their own. "Captain," she said urgently, "broadcast the medical reports from the plague world. Let them hear what's really at stake." Understanding immediately, James quickly transmitted the latest reports from the medical teams. The audio filled the comm channels with desperate pleas from doctors describing the dying children, the overwhelmed hospitals, the families watching their loved ones slip away for lack of medicine. The effect was immediate and visible to Zara's enhanced perception. The stress patterns in the pirate crews shifted dramatically. She could see doubt and conflict spreading through their energy signatures like ripples in a pond. "That's very touching," the pirate leader said, but his voice had lost much of its confidence. "But we have our own people to feed." "Then help us deliver these supplies," Marcus replied. "Escort us safely through the nebula, and I'll transfer half our fee for this run to your accounts." Legal money, no questions asked? It was a risky gamble, offering to pay pirates instead of fighting them. But Zara could see the internal struggle raging through the enemy crews. These weren't monsters. They were people driven to desperation by circumstances beyond their control. The silence stretched for long moments before the pirate leader spoke again. "You would trust us to honor such an arrangement?" "Sometimes you have to have faith in people's better nature," Marcus replied. "Even pirates have families they want to protect." What happened next would become legend in the shipping lanes. The 4 pirate ships, instead of attacking, formed an escort formation around the Lucky Star and guided them safely through the remainder of the nebula passage. When they reached clear space, the pirates simply departed without taking anything, apparently shamed by the trust Marcus had shown them. As the Lucky Star continued toward the plague world, Zara realized she had witnessed something extraordinary. The humans' capacity for compassion, their willingness to see the good in others even in desperate circumstances, had transformed potential enemies into unexpected allies. "How did you know they would help us?" she asked Marcus later. "I didn't," he admitted. "But you showed me their uncertainty through their energy patterns. I figured if there was doubt, there was also conscience. Sometimes all people need is someone to believe they can do the right thing." It was the most human thing she had ever heard, and it filled her with pride to be part of a species that could inspire such philosophy in others. The humans hadn't just saved her from exile. They had taught her that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act with compassion despite that fear. 5 years after that first terrifying day on Nexus Station, Zara stood on the bridge of the Lucky Star as it approached Earth, humanity's homeworld. She had never imagined she would see the legendary blue planet that had given birth to the remarkable species that had changed her life so completely. The invitation had come from the human Merchant Marine Academy, where Marcus had been asked to give a lecture on unconventional problem-solving in space commerce. The Academy wanted to hear about their success stories, and Zara's unique contributions to their missions had become something of a legend in shipping circles. "Nervous?" Helena asked, joining Zara at the observation window as Earth grew larger before them. "Excited," Zara replied, and realized it was true. The frightened, rejected Calixian who had fled her homeworld no longer existed. In her place stood a confident professional who had found her place in the galaxy through the unlikely kindness of humans. The Lucky Star had grown over the years, both in size and reputation. They now operated 3 ships and employed crews from a dozen different species. But the original family remained at its heart. Marcus still captained the flagship. Elena had become their chief engineer across the fleet. Tom served as their master navigator, and James had established a small medical research division. Zara had become something unprecedented, the galaxy's first certified paranormal logistics specialist. Her unique abilities had proven so valuable that several major shipping companies had tried to poach her with increasingly ridiculous offers. She had turned them all down without hesitation. The Lucky Star wasn't just her employer. It was her home. Their reputation had grown beyond simple cargo hauling. They were now called in for the most challenging missions. Disasters where conventional sensors failed. Diplomatic emergencies where reading the true intentions of negotiators could prevent wars. Archaeological expeditions where ancient energies needed to be safely analyzed. But it was their humanitarian work that Zara was most proud of. Following their success in the Nebula Passage, they had become the preferred transporters for medical relief missions. Her ability to navigate dangerous regions that other ships couldn't traverse had saved countless lives across the galaxy. The Human Merchant Marine Academy was located in the Swiss Alps, a stunning complex of modern buildings nestled among snow-capped peaks. As their shuttle descended toward the landing pad, Zara marveled at the sight of Earth's natural beauty. Her enhanced vision picked up the incredible biodiversity of the planet. Millions of different energy signatures from countless life forms coexisting in complex harmony. "Welcome to Earth," Marcus said with obvious pride in his voice. Home of humans and about 10 billion other species we're still discovering. The Academy was filled with young humans and aliens from across the galaxy, all studying to become the next generation of space merchants and traders. As they walked through the corridors, Zara noticed the casual integration of different species, something that would have been unthinkable on most worlds, where segregation and hierarchy were the norm. Marcus's lecture was held in the Academy's largest auditorium, packed with eager students. He spoke about the importance of building diverse crews, of looking beyond conventional qualifications to find hidden talents. When he introduced Zara and described her abilities, the audience listened with rapt attention. "The most valuable crew member I've ever hired," Marcus said, "was someone her own people had rejected as defective. Sometimes the things that make us different are exactly the things that make us invaluable." During the question period, a young human cadet raised her hand. "How did you know to trust someone from a species known for being xenophobic?" "I didn't know," Marcus admitted. "But I learned a long time ago that individuals aren't responsible for their species' reputation. Every being deserves to be judged on their own merits." After the lecture, Zara found herself surrounded by students wanting to know more about her work. A young Calixian cadet with slightly uneven wing patterns approached her hesitantly. "I heard about what you've accomplished," the cadet said quietly. "My family sent me here because they didn't know what else to do with someone like me. Do you think there's hope for others like us?" Zara looked at this young person who reminded her so much of herself, and felt her heart swell with purpose. "There's always hope," she said firmly. "Sometimes you just have to be brave enough to leave behind the people who can't see your worth and find the ones who can." That evening, the crew gathered for dinner at a restaurant overlooking Lake Geneva. As they sat together sharing stories and laughter, Zara reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her here. She had gone from being an unwanted exile to becoming a respected professional whose abilities were sought after across the galaxy. But more than that, she had learned what it meant to belong. The humans had shown her that family wasn't about genetics or species loyalty. It was about choosing to care for each other, to build each other up, to stand together against a universe that could be cold and hostile. "So what's next for us?" Tom asked as they watched the sunset paint the lake in brilliant colors. "There's a research expedition to the Andromeda anomaly," Marcus said thoughtfully. "They need someone who can see through the energy distortions surrounding it. The pay is excellent, and it would be our biggest challenge yet." "Sounds perfect," Elena said with a grin. "When do we leave?" "After Zara's speaking engagement at the Galactic Diversity Conference," Marcus replied. "She's become quite the celebrity in academic circles." Zara blushed at the attention. In addition to her work with the Lucky Star, she had begun consulting with research institutions studying perceptual abilities in different species. Her unique perspective had opened up entirely new fields of study, challenging long-held assumptions about what constituted normal versus abnormal. More importantly, her story had inspired others. Across the galaxy, beings who had been rejected for their differences were finding new hope. The term defective was slowly being replaced with uniquely gifted in many societies, and discrimination laws were being strengthened to protect individuals with unusual abilities. As they made their way back to the Lucky Star that night, Zara paused to look up at the stars. Somewhere out there was Helix Prime, where her people still clung to their narrow definitions of normal and acceptable. She felt no anger toward them anymore, only sadness for what they were missing. "Thank you," she said quietly to Marcus as they walked up the ship's ramp. "For what?" "For seeing something in me that I couldn't see in myself. For giving me a chance when no one else would." Marcus smiled, the same warm expression that had greeted her 5 years ago in Docking Bay 94. "That's what humans do," he said simply. "We believe in the potential of others even when they don't believe in themselves. Especially then." As the Lucky Star lifted off from Earth and headed back toward the stars, Zara felt a deep contentment settle over her. She had found her place in the universe not despite being different but because of it. The humans had taught her that diversity wasn't a weakness to be hidden, it was a strength to be celebrated. In the cargo bay below, they carried supplies for 3 different worlds and a dozen scientific instruments for the research expedition. But their most valuable cargo, Zara knew, was something intangible. The proof that compassion could bridge any gap, that acceptance could heal any wound, and that sometimes the most unlikely friendships could change the course of entire lives. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and Zara looked forward to exploring every corner of it with the family that had chosen her. After all, as the humans like to say, the best adventures were the ones you shared with people who truly understood your worth.